One of my favourite golf clubs in the bag is my 7-wood. Now this is the Srixon ZXi 7-wood, and I've made a few modifications just to fine tune it to get the most out of it that I can. And I want to compare it to the new PXG Gen 8 to see if there's anything more out there, although it might be very hard to beat. So what I've got here is the ZXi Srixon 7-wood. I've got it on the lowest loft setting, so I've got 21 degrees on -1.5. Now the reason I've done that is because it makes the face sit a little bit more open, and I tend to miss the ball left. And it also gives me the perfect yardage gap between my 5-iron and my 5-wood. I've also got the club running at an inch shorter than standard, so I've got it at 41 inches instead of 42, because that makes the shaft just a little bit stiffer because there's less length in it, and it brings the overall height down just a little bit as well, along with the loft. So what I was looking to do with this club is to get the ball down and right as much as I could compared to standard specs. And what I find is that I just get a very consistent yardage on the golf ball, and this is the perfect scenario where I would be using this club. I'm hitting it into a par 5, so I'm looking for it to get up, get down and stay. Whereas with my 3 driving iron or my 3 ZXi utility, it comes in a little bit lower, so once it hits the ground it can run through the green a little bit depending on the conditions. And when we get all that height, there is a downside to the 7-wood, and that is when you're hitting the ball into the wind. So if I'm playing on a links course, I might choose to take the 7-wood out and put the driving iron in because I want to keep the ball flight down. So it is one of those clubs that I do kind of take in and out depending on the conditions, although I have been leaving it in the bag because I realised that if I put my 5-iron off my back foot and hit it as hard as I can, I get my ZXiU numbers from that. So that does mean that I can leave the 7-wood in the bag a little bit more often. Ooh. And what I find is that I just get a very, very consistent landing yardage. It doesn't vary too much from a 226 number. Apart from that one, that was 232. There. And I do also really like this club off the tee round the course that I grew up at, Leighton Buzzard, because there's a lot of shorter holes with dog legs, and if you hit something low and hard over the corner or through the corner, you can hit the ground and just run into trouble the other side. Hitting the 7-wood gets up and over the trouble, and once it lands somewhere near the fairway, it will stay there much better. So there's a lot of functionality from the 7-wood. So this is the PXG Lightning 7-wood. It is 21 degrees. I've also got this on the lower loft setting, so I've got the same difference in this. I don't have the same shaft because you can't get the Miyazaki shafts in other clubs. I've got an Aldila Green Next Gen 75X in this PXG. It's got a yellow and green grip, and I'll probably put some yellow and green paint in the weights on the bottom of the club. But the additional thing that I can do with this is I can take the heavier weight out, which is 12.5 grams, and I've taken it out of these 3 ports here, and I've put it in the toe, because with a 7-wood, 9-wood, 11-wood on another video, it is much easier to draw these clubs. It is much easier to get these fairway woods to sneak to the left hand side. So anyone that moves the ball to the right where they don't want to, the 7-wood, 9-wood and 11-wood can be much easier than a hybrid, for example, to bring that ball back, because you've got more shaft coming back into the ball compared to a shorter alternative. We've got very different club faces. With the Srixon, we've got a much smaller round-soled head, which is much more like the PXG Tour version. With the PXG, we've got a much flatter sole, a much longer club face, and generally just a bit more surface area to look at behind the ball. So I am predicting that this is a touch more forgiving. I've got it at the same length, and that was a proper toe slap, and it's still there. 228. Now it could be that I get a slightly different carry from this compared to mine. Oh, that does feel nice and easy off the face. Ooh, it could be a little bit more potent as well. Could we just have that little bit more meat in the head because it's a little bit more forgiving. And the only downside of that for me is that I'm not looking to get any more yardage. I'm just trying to see if this is more forgiving. Now, if it does go a little bit further, that could have some use for some people, but I actually quite like my 226. And if I do something like take that loft back up to standard, I'm going to be more likely to hit that draw. So I do like the idea of leaving it on lower, but it'd be interesting to see the difference in height and spin compared to mine. Oh, a little bit toey. Now they're all going in the same sort of space, which is nice. Let me see if I can hit a fade with one, just to see if it's more workable or as workable. Can I hit a fade? Oh, I can. Okay. It's stayed there the whole time, and it's going to land and stop fairly quickly, back edge. Ooh. I've got no complaints there. There's no danger with that shot of going in these bunkers, because the distance has maintained really, really well on the PXG. So a couple more back to the Srixon, which is from my golf bag. Yep. Oh, on the fringe. The shaft that I have in here is a 7X. It's the Miyazaki. It's the Corey, which is just under the grip there because I've taken so much length off. And the profile of the shaft is 5688. So I've got 5688. It's a much stiffer tip shaft to help keep that ball down and right compared to other shafts. The head doesn't feel as forgiving as the PXG, but it does what I need it to do. I want that ball to get up, I want that ball to land on the green, and I want it to kind of stay there fairly well. There's not much run out from that far away. And of course I've got a bit of familiarity with this club as well. Ooh, come out. Now if I had a gap in the bag and I was looking to put a new club in, it might be that I look at the PXG and go, that's more forgiving, I'm going to enjoy that a bit more. I don't feel the need to replace this, because I don't have any problems with it and I like the yardage that I get with it. But if someone doesn't have a 7-wood in the bag, they're both good clubs to look at. A little bit more help in the PXG. Let's have a little look at the numbers and see what we get. So peak height on the PXG is 119, and the consistency of that is very good. We've got 3 yards of variance. On mine it is 123, so I've got 4 feet higher, and the variance is 7, so I've got a little bit more variance in my own club. And we've got 230. We did have less shots on the PXG, but we got 230 yards of carry against 2 yards of variance. And the 225, which I have 226 written down, 5 yards of variance from that. There was a slightly potent one in there, 234, and then a couple that weren't quite as good. So I do have a bit of a spread from good to bad. So I quite like what I'm seeing there in the numbers of the PXG. It's just a little bit tighter with less variation. It did feel easier off the face. Angle of descent on the PXG, 46.6 against 47.5. So I'm coming in a bit steeper from a higher peak height in the Srixon, but I've still got a lot of stopping power in both. Ball speeds, I've got more ball speed off the PXG. Probably there's a little bit more tech in the face and the head. Lower launch, lower spin. Lower peak height as well, just mean that we maintain a little bit more carry and we get it quite often as well, which is nice. And 225 in the Srixon, but in my mind, as long as I know what I'm going to create, I'll be quite happy with both. PXG Lightning is a slightly smaller dispersion, and it's just leaning to that left-hand side just a little bit more than the Srixon, which has a bigger spread. I've got a couple more out to the right. Average direction is 0.8 yards left on the Srixon. Average is 11.7 yards left on the PXG. And there is of course all the other different shafts that you can put in the Srixon and the PXG. I do have a 7-wood video in the works for all the different shafts you can get in the Srixon, and I'll try and get a little bit more around the fairway woods in the PXG in future videos, so stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. But yeah, quite impressed by the new PXG fairway wood. It feels nice and easy and it flies quite stable.